You have chosen one of Miss Linton's most favorite holiday books. Oh, hello, my friends. Boy, we've missed you. I am going to read to you from the Santa Claus book. This was one of my most favorite books to read from every holiday season when I was a little girl. You excited, Slothy? All right, good. All right, let's begin. The Santa Claus book by Aldin, Perkes, PhD.S. And the author also illustrated the pictures in this book. The very first story we're going to look at today is where Santa Claus came from. I've always wondered that, haven't you, Slothy? All right, good. Yeah, I know. Okay, everybody get your hot chocolate and let's get started reading from my favorite holiday book. Here we go. Where Santa Came From. Once upon a time, when the world was much younger, a very special child was born. He came to be known as Santa Claus, and he's loved and revered the world over. But the story begins even before then. In a quite little village in a small country lived a handsome young carpenter named Sandy Claus. His wife was named Tasha, and she was the most beautiful lady in the whole land. Sandy and Tasha were very happy together. They never quarreled. They were respected by their fellow villagers. They always had plenty of food to eat. But there was one sadness in their lives, and it made their hearts ache. They wanted desperately to have a little child, but they'd never been able to. Years passed, then passed again. Sandy was elected mayor of the village. Tasha became the best friend of all the children in the town, but still they had no children of their own. Sandy's beard turned gray. Tasha began to have wisps of white in her hair, and they knew that they had become too old to have children now. Their dream would forever go unfulfilled. One night, before they went to bed, Sandy looked up at the sky. Black clouds moved ponderously across the stars. It's going to be a bad one, he said solemnly. And he latched the shutters firmly over the windows. As the night wore on, the sky turned dark and wild. The wind moaned through the trees. Leaves skittered down the dusty road. This is a night of nights, Sandy whispered. The rain pelted down against their thatched roof, drowning out his words. But Tasha shared his fears and clung close to him underneath their thick quilts. The storm whipped about them hour after hour as they tossed and turned through the endless night. Then, suddenly, the rain stopped. The wind turned away. All was Sandy drew a deep breath. Tasha uttered a silent prayer of thankfulness. But the wail began again, only this time it was different. It didn't rustle the thatches on the roof. It didn't wheeze around the corners of the house. It was high and shrill and very lonely. Tasha sat up in bed, urgent. "It's a baby," she said. And she jumped out of the bed and ran to the door of their hut. There, on their doorstep, was a little reddened baby, wrapped in heavy blankets, soaked to the skin and crying lustily. She picked him up tenderly, held him to her breast, and carried him tenderly. "Sandy, a baby," she said softly. They pulled the wet blankets off. Attached to the baby's nappy was a note. "I love this baby more than my life, but disaster threatens. I know you will care for him as if he were your own. Love him for me." The note was not signed. Tasha held the baby's cheek against hers. "Something horrible has happened to your mother on this horrible night," she said. "But we will love and care for you, for her, forever." In the morning, Tasha and Sandy had the first and last argument of their marriage. "We'll name the baby after me," Sandy announced at the breakfast table. "We'll call him Sandy." Tasha looked up sharply. "No," she said. "I've waited so long, we must call him Tash, after me." "It will be Sandy," Sandy said again, his voice rising louder. "No, Tash," Tasha answered, her voice even louder. They ate the rest of their meal in silence, avoiding glances, refusing to speak. Then the baby began to cry, and Tasha went to care for him. Sandy slammed the door when he left the hut to go to work. All day long, Tasha thought of the problem. "We both love this baby, but we love each other too. I was wrong. We should let him be named Sandy." And all day long, Sandy thought of the problem as he sawed and hammered his wood. "I love Tasha more than myself," he thought. "I've been so wrong. We'll name him Tash." When he went home that night, Tasha met him at the door. "We'll name him San," she started to say, but Sandy interrupted. "Tash," he said. Then they looked at each other and laughed. "Santash," Sandy said. "What kind of a name is that?" "No kind of name for our son," Tasha said. "Why don't we name him Santa, after both of us?" Santa was a good boy, helpful to his mother and obedient to his father. He made friends quickly as he grew, and soon he was the favorite among his fellows. But the adults in the village were worried. "His ears are a little pointed," said one. "I'll bet he has some elf blood in him." "I don't trust him," said another. "Never trust half elf. That's what I always say." "His cheeks are too rosy," gossiped a third. "Just like an elf's." When Santa walked into the village, the people called him names and were rude to him. "Don't come near me, elf boy. I don't want your evil magic around me. Get away from me, imp. Don't you dare look at me with your elfish evil eye, you pointed-eared twit." More than once, Santa ran home crying to his mother. When Santa became a man, he moved away from the village to another land far away. He became a famous carpenter, with kings and princes coming to him for carpentry work. But everywhere he went, he saw meanness. Most parents were wonderful with their children, but when Santa saw the mean ones, he wept. And he remembered how his friends had loved him as a boy, when all the adults were horrible. I must help these poor children, he said to himself, and he began to save his money. On the next gift day, Santa took special gifts to all the poor children and left them in secret during the night. The next day, the whole town was alive with talk of the miracle that had happened. Some mysterious being had left gifts for many, many children in the night. Santa smiled to himself, and he felt happier than he had ever before. The next year, Santa gave out even more gifts, and the following year, he gave still more. And he noticed that the people in the town began to change. No one knew who was giving the gifts, so everyone was kind to everyone else. My wicked neighbor might be the generous one. In secret, each of the townspeople thought. I'd better treat him much better. They were nicer to their children, too. If someone thinks they're that special, they thought, I should be kinder to them. Before long, Santa was giving gifts to every child in the town. I want every one of them to feel loved by someone, he wrote in a letter to Sandy and Tasha. I want every one of them to have as much love as you gave me. As Santa gave more and more, he wanted to share with even more children. He wanted to give to every child in the land, and in the neighboring land, and in all the lands beyond that. And over the years, he's been able to do just that. Now, the little boy who was left on the doorstep in the storm, the little boy who was half-elf, ridiculed by the people in the town, now that little boy is a man. Now he's Santa Claus, the most famous and most loved man in the whole world. All right, everybody, that's all for now, my friends. But come back again, and I'll tell you all about Mrs. Santa Claus. Bye, everybody.